it seemed to be a very joyous occasion with people coming out of their shops and offices into the streets, and they all closed, and the workers at the Hillside Railway workshops formed up in Hillside Road, which is a thing called Cargill Road, but formed up in the street outside and marched in from there into what became the Queen's Gardens. It was called the Triangle then. And a lot of people just spontaneously joined on with them, and so by the time they got into town, it was quite a substantial march. And then they crowded in the Octagon for a speech by the Mayor and by a Presbyterian minister. Then there were other speeches later on in the lower Octagon and in the Queen's Garden. So it was a great day.
And fighting actually went on quite a long time after the 11th of November anyway. And the other key thing to remember is the New Zealand troops don't come home, most of them, at least the Pākehā troops, don't come home till June, July the next year. And the Maori troops come home in March, and of course the flu impacts both groups even before they leave, so there's quite a few deaths across the two armies, as it were, before anybody comes home.
That very elongated period before they came home was kind of manipulated a bit by the British authorities to keep the New Zealand troops close at hand in case there was socialist upheavals in Britain.
The whole thing is awkward because it means that right here in Dunedin there's a key part of the hopefully celebrations missing, and that is the soldiers themselves. And we mustn't forget that 1831 at least guys from Dunedin didn't make it back.
I think part of the Armistice Day thing was an expectation that the soldiers would be home soon, but of course they weren't. Instead of coming home, they had to face the other direction and went to Germany.
Some of them were used in exotic places, like fighting with the White Russians against the Bolsheviks, but most of them were just there in Cologne, in southern, beautiful old cathedral city, unaffected completely by the war.
A lot of the soldiers who died towards the end of the war, and those who died in Cologne when the war was supposedly over, were actually flu victims rather than war victims.
It was a huge problem because of the lack of shipping, see, which had been completely mucked around by German U-boats. And then of course all our shipping had been taken up with sending off dairy produce, mainly butter, but a bit of cheese, and of course frozen meat and wool. And there was just no spare shipping, so that's one reason it took so long to get the guys back again.